Really? No, I mean, I watched the show. No, there's no issue there. It's more, I mean, look, we talked about this when I did Clone Wars. There are still movies coming out. I mean, plus I just did a show about the series finale on Big Picture last week, and yeah, I know that wasn't a review, but it kind of got the point across, don't you? Well, okay then. You don't have to tell me twice. She-Ra and the Princesses of Power is a 21st century reboot of a 1980s animated series based on a line of dolls which spun off from a female-centric adjacent from the He-Man and the Masters of the Universe toy and cartoon franchise. The dolls attempting to combine a fantasy princess dress-up doll aesthetic with light elements of action figure weapon play, and the series noteworthy mainly for being nominally more lasting as a pop culture artifact by virtue of being, unlike the dolls, embraced by a cross-gender audience, mostly because it was effectively produced as a quasi-continuation of He-Man, since the toy company had only made like one villain doll for She-Ra, and the line ended up using a hilariously mismatched scary monster set of bad guys originally meant for He-Man as antagonists, which made the whole thing like not necessarily good, but interesting visually, certainly. Which I feel like is a thing people probably know, right? And also that some folks feel nostalgic about the older version and were annoyed about this one, but none of that's really germane to a review, so we don't really need to get more into it than that. Acknowledged, okay? Moving on. Anyway, the new version, for legal purposes, pulls out the explicit He-Man connections, but otherwise keeps the same initial character setup, and for good measure, the original's offbeat, sparkly pastel princess pink good guys versus horrifying industrial goth space monster bad guys concede, at least at first, before gradually spinning off its own whole thing somewhere towards the middle. The medieval fantasy-esque planet of Etheria is being gradually conquered by an alien army of unknown origin called the Horde that's pillaging their resources, specifically ancient magic, ancient mystery technology, and child soldiers, because believe it or not, that actually was a plot point in the original. One specifically adept soldier called Adora gets separated while on patrol, finds this franchise's version of Excalibur, and learns she's actually a prophesized savior who can transform into She-Ra, a muscle-bound superhuman Valkyrie warrior type who apparently manifests to protect the planet from evil when in need. She also accepts faster than you might expect that her life is a lie and she's been fighting for the bad guys this whole time. It's a kids show. Which, yeah, was also basically the plot setup of the original series, but this time without finding all of this out from He-Man guest stars and the new running plot threads of She-Ra having to unite the, at first, not all friendly leaders of the other good kingdoms, who are also all teenage princesses and one younger kid because that's fun, to pool their resources and magic powers, and Adora having to deal with her former horde mate and best friend for life, Catra, feeling personally betrayed by all of this, and opting to not only stick with the bad guys, but rapidly rise through the bad military ranks so she can use their weaponry to basically go all Fatal Attraction on her former don't call it a crush. Yeah, so one of the multiple high marks of the series has often been given during its run was a lot of positive, matter-of-fact representation for LGBTQ characters, especially for a kiddie show, and while it's decidedly well distributed across the supporting cast, it's apparent pretty much right from the get-go that Adora and Catra are engaging in a literal Batman-Catwoman hero-villain love-hate romance across the arc of the series is basically the centerpiece of this, and it really does work very well. It's not a coming-out tease or a self-discovery thing. The setting of this is very much a world where homophobia doesn't seem to exist. It's basic good guy, bad guy, former friend betrayal narrative. It happens to be two women, and they really nailed it, largely thanks to a good voice actresses and strong writing. I can't say that the entire series is itself perfect, even though by hinging its eventual main arc so much on that resolution of its two strongest characters, it ensures a solid finish. There are a few too many characters. Not every mystery or puzzle feels like it needed to be a mystery or a puzzle, and while I'm a big supporter of misdirection as a story device, occasionally some of the mythology mythology involved here leans a little too much on the characters deceiving one another without discernible gain. That's not to say that most of these things don't end up being not really significant issues. TV shows aren't singular narratives. They're more like trees. Some branches are just going to end. I did find myself saying, you know, I could have done with more of that, less of that here and there. What makes it work overall for me in retrospect is that a lot of really small, smart, unique decisions informing an otherwise very solid, if standard fantasy action narrative. I like turning the by now obligatory "the universe of the story just got a lot bigger" stakes raising moment that a lot of such shows have literal instead of figurative. I like keeping the weird mix of sitcom humor, but also it's a giant war tone of the original, but more so. I like making She-Ra herself sort of the good-looking, popular, super skilled, but also kind of a dope, dumb jock of her own team. Like, she's not stupid, but she's definitely there because she's strong, huge, and has powers, but not brilliant or the brains of the outfit, and she's constantly charging in over her head or getting distracted by the thing between her and Catra that everyone but them notices. That's a fun angle. And I like a lot of the supporting cast. Scorpia especially is a fan favorite for very good reason. Just a wide, interesting cast. Again, probably too big of a secondary cast, but a lot of interesting characters peppered throughout. And while it does skew very young, unlike a lot of other series like this, it doesn't feel like it's trying too hard to signal to adults that any of the content is really for them, which I kind of honestly appreciate in this era where so many kids shows sometimes feel like they're being made mainly to have essays written about them looking at you, back half of Steven Universe. And I don't know if I would have bothered to check this out if it wasn't a remake of a thing I remembered from the 80s, but I thought it was a really solid version of itself. I mean, by default, it's probably the best actually unironically good narrative thing anyone's made from Masters of the Universe material. It certainly raises the bar for whatever Kevin Smith is going to do with his He-Man show. For now, I give She-Ra an 8 out of 10. All 5 seasons are streaming on Netflix. Definitely check it out if it's up your alley.